goody gumdrops.
What's going down? This is Jeff Kohler, the Option Addict, from www.optionaddict.net. And I'm here armed and willing with another weekly watch list. So I'm starting off here with the chart of the old S&P 500. And the reason why was I was following this nice little price pattern here, the old symmetrical triangle, that broke to the upside last week. Now, I had been pretty bullish on the market up until this point, and this was a nice little soft confirmation that we saw. But sure enough, based on the way we finished out last week, that sucker has failed. And it's failed hard. We've broken to the downside pretty clean here. Now, if I zoom into, let's say, a 20-day chart, you'll notice that the last few days have been relatively easy to trade. You can see we kind of did the old double top formation here, broke to the downside, came up, retested that, and we've just been getting slaughtered ever since. So from a day trader's perspective, this tape's been pretty freaking easy to trade. But the reason I'm zooming in here now is you'll notice that we're coming up along some pretty good support here down around 1325. So I want you to have that on your radar heading into this week. If we break below that, we're likely to test it as a resistance to the downside and continue to test new lows. So now that we ended off the week on a pretty dour note, the Asian markets overseas traded pretty poorly too. So I'm thinking that's going to spill over into Monday's trading. We'll see what kind of news shakes out, but speaking of news, the economic calendar is pointing to a couple big deal news items coming out this week. Factory orders, crude inventories, beige book, non-farm payrolls, unemployment, all the good stuff. So definitely a lot of news coming out this week that could make or break our already fragile economy and our market. So I want you to watch the support level that I pointed out here. Make sure you're watching the old economic releases that are coming out this week. Those are going to definitely affect the way the market trades. So the way I look at this week is, what am I long, what am I short? Well, if I were calling it right now, I'm not going to divvy too much off of what I had mentioned last week, and that's going to be long commodities, a couple select steel names, we'll get to those a little bit later, a couple select energy names, and a couple select tech names. But what am I bearish on this week? Stocks in general. Most notably, I'd say biotech and I'd say healthcare, and of course financials. Financials and healthcare were my pick from last week, and if you were watching those stocks, especially healthcare, Coventry, Humana, WellPoint, all those stocks just got walloped at the end of last week's trading. So pretty good pick. There's still a lot of downside left there. Make sure you're watching them. Anyway, I'm going to get to a few price patterns that I'm watching this week, and the one that I'm most excited about, the one that has been just a long time coming, you guys know I've had this on my radar forever, is Legg Mason. And this long-term descending triangle that I've been watching, that son of a gun finally broke down on Friday, and we are into new lows, and we did so at a pretty substantial pace. You can see the day just catastrophic for Legg Mason, and this is the event I've been waiting for. Now you might see the stock retest, but I think, if you look at the pattern here over the longer period of time, we're talking about a 15-point movement to the downside, which could take as much as 3 months. You don't have to run out there and try to pick one trade to try to capture all that movement. Like I've been saying all along, keep your time frames short and sweet. Trade this with some short-dated puts and continue to ride that trend because it's probably going to be a substantial one here for the next several months. So Legg Mason, I'm excited about that. I'm also watching AXYS, Axis Technologies. I said a few select tech names I'm really excited about. Well, the flag that I'm seeing here in Axis Technologies, I'm really stoked about, especially since it corresponds off of old support. You don't necessarily have to wait for a breakout on this one. In fact, I get asked all the time, at what point would I anticipate a trade? In a situation like this, I'd anticipate a breakout because I'm right near some pretty strong support. So if the stock breaks below this, that's always been my exit signal, I'll get out on a break of support. It's just that simple. Next, I'm watching Burger King. I don't know why, I just think it's funny. Looking at BKC, you can see a monster symmetrical triangle. Now, truthfully, I don't get really all excited about price patterns that make up enormous percentages of stock prices, but it might be something interesting to keep an eye on. Disclaimer, I ain't going to trade this one. Next one we're looking at is LNG, and a nice little descending triangle going on here. And this one's a pretty cheap stock. And in fact, I haven't even looked at the options on this yet, so I don't even know if I'm going to trade options here. But if I get a break below 27.5, I can definitely tell you I'm at least going to short this thing. Because based on this pattern that we're seeing here, I'm expecting about a 5-point movement in a $20 stock. So why would you not? Next, I'm going to look at BKE Buckle, little retail action here. And I'm not going to take this one this early yet, because I still think this is pretty early in the stages of a possible flag pattern. But I like the fact that this has been a leader in that group, trading just off of its highs. So if you are watching this pattern develop, it might be another week or so before it happens. But as soon as it breaks above resistance that I've just highlighted here, that's where you're going to want to take that trade. I'm also watching APH. As you can see here, another descending triangle. Fairly simple. ITC. Now if you look at this one, this is a enormous ascending triangle. Now if I get questioned on my lines here, if you switch over to a line chart, you'll see I've got it right. Don't ever question me. There it is. It's huge. It's a long-term pattern, so if you're a long-term options trader, maybe you invest here, or upon breakout, which probably isn't going to be for another 2 to 3 weeks, when that does finally signal up here, you can trade it multiple times as the stock continues its upward trend. Next, this is a pattern I'm seeing all over the place. I don't necessarily want to give credit to the underlying stock here that I'm looking at, which is Oriental Express Hotels. But you'll notice here that I've got a rising wedge, which is a very bearish pattern. It's a bearish continuation pattern. So if Oriental decides to break support here, then that means I'm going to get long some puts. Now this isn't necessarily pointed at realty stocks. I'm not a big fan of those. If you've followed my blog, you'll know I have a freaking tough time trading these stocks. But I'm seeing this pattern all over the place. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied into this industry group or this stock. It's all over. So if we start to see a lot of these stocks confirming and breaking below these short-term higher highs and higher lows, look for them to at least test prior lows here, like for example OEH, looking for a price target of at least 48. Now these are my 3-star price patterns that I'm going to go over right now. My 3 favorites this week. There's 3 of them. We're going to start with the Head and Shoulders on EGN. I love this pattern right here. This is one of my favorites for the week. Based on this price action that we saw here on Friday, we're trading at a new low. Looking at the pattern based on target price, we're talking at least a 9-point move for a $60 stock. And you know what? I got me some puts. So if you like the setup, maybe you dabble yourself. The second on my list of 3-star price patterns is going to be Ritchie Brothers, RBA. And if you'll notice this is a monster double top formation that confirmed. And last but not least, CPHD. You guys know I was following this on my bullish list for a long time. Made out like a bandit in this nice upward trend of higher highs and higher lows, but that pattern has subsided. Here we are, we're on the verge of confirming a double top. A close below this is going to be the entry signal. And that's probably going to happen on Monday. So keep a close eye on it. This thing's also good for about a 5-point move. And again, for a $20 stock, you can't beat that. So that'll conclude my price patterns. Here's a couple other stocks that I'm looking to get bullish or bearish on this week. And a couple other stocks that I'm watching for general breakouts. The one bullish stock that I've been watching is C-Trips, CTRP. I've been on a line chart here for quite a while. I'm going to get back to candle patterns, but you guys will remember this symmetrical triangle that we traded a few weeks ago via the weekly watch list. Well, look at this stock. It's run all the way back up to its prior highs, like I told you it would. And it's showing some signs of resistance. Now, this is a pretty strong stock. I don't expect this trend to start failing anytime soon. What I do expect is a breakout here and an establishment of a new 52-week high. So I think that's going to happen this week. So keep a close eye on it. Some bearish stocks I'm watching to break down. NIHD. I've been watching this one forever. That hasn't changed. It's still on that list. If it does break down, you better believe I'm buying some puts. Express Scripts did break on Friday, but it broke pretty hard. So I don't know if I'd be taking it here. I missed this opportunity. By the time I looked at it, it was long gone. If it retraces back up to this level, then that's going to be something I'm going to take down. The next one you definitely need to react to is WBD. And that's old Wimbledon Foods. And if you look here at the 1-year chart, you can see it's broken a pretty strong level of support. Again, if you have a question here about the trend line, I'll switch over to a line chart and you'll say, oh, yep, he's right. That's right about where support is. In fact, I might even drag that down a little bit, and there we have it. So kind of a head and shoulders pattern, if you will. It's a pretty good break of support. I think that spells some bad things for WBD. And last on my list of breakdowns is Granite GVA. And you can see this one also broke down as well. And I expect this one to continue down for a little ways. So that'll conclude my list this week, folks. If you've been watching these lists in the past couple weeks, you'll notice I've been on a tear. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. These are going to be the stocks that are going to lead us all to the promised land. So hopefully you take advantage of some of the opportunities here, or at least you learn a bit about the wonderful art of stock picking. To all that are watching, I wish you a happy week in the market. And with that said, that concludes another weekly watch list. And thank you very kindly for watching.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to pull rank on you. I didn't want to have to do this. I'm with the mattress police. There are no tags on these mattresses. I have to take you downtown. Now give me the weapon.